Hello FPL Manager, welcome to another video where we're looking back at Game Week 6 and looking forward towards Game Week 7. So we'll start off with some good news. So for those of you involved on things like Twitter or even on other channels on YouTube, you'll have known that a few high profile accounts actually got hacked. And the FPL Twitter account, the official one, have actually tweeted out saying they've completed their investigation. And it seems as though that those accounts who got hacked and deleted are actually going to get them back. So I think that's really good. Hopefully now the official FPL game will maybe up their security a little bit. So we don't know how these people have been hacked, or if it's through the official FPL website, or if it's through maybe a third-party app that people use. I personally don't add any apps onto my FPL. Certainly not one where I have to give them my email and password. So my advice would be, change your password if you're worried about that. But I think everything will be all right now. But that was some good news to start off the day with. Now, having a look at my Game Week 6, and you can see I actually had a really, really strong game week. And the funny thing is, this is pretty much this exact same squad as that got this dismal 28. The only sort of key difference was Pookie wasn't on the bench. But I had to take out Lanzini. So during the live stream on Friday, we actually got the news that Lanzini was quite a major doubt. So I thought, well, I'll use this. I wanted to save my transfer, but I used this time to take Lanzini out, who I did want to hold on for a little bit longer, bring in Cantwell. So even though it was a nothing kind of transfer, I didn't get anything back, the rest of the team, the rest of the squad that was involved in that horrible 28-point game week actually somehow came through. So Lundstrom, of course, coming off the bench with a whopping 12 points for Sterling. There's been it feels a bit 50-50 a little bit on Twitter, with a lot of people being annoyed or angry at those who either got Lundstrom off the bench, but that's what your bench is for. That's why you organise your bench in that order. Lundstrom was on purpose my first choice substitute in front of my other players, and those getting annoyed at Kevin De Bruyne vice captaincy. Now, I personally put my vice captaincy on Salah because I was worried about De Bruyne getting rotated anyway. I didn't think Sterling was going to get rotated, but I didn't want to give captaincy to Sterling, vice captaincy to De Bruyne, and have either one of them get substituted early or have one of them get dropped. So for those who braved captaining or vice captaining De Bruyne, I think that's hats off to you. I don't think that's a reason to sort of get a little bit annoyed at people. You've got your squad, you've got your entire squad to choose from, and that's why we choose vice captaincies. That's why we choose substitute orders. So I think that's maybe just a little bit of bitterness, because it seems like some people have had good weeks with a bit of fortune and some people haven't. But I was pretty happy with my game week. But I have already made my transfers for the up and coming game week, and it might actually surprise you. I've taken a -8. Maybe it was the dizzying heights of having a pretty good game week, but like everyone, we always tinker around. We always have a look at the directions we're going to go for, and it really felt like now was the time to do it, to get advantage. Even though I'm taking a -8 hit, to take advantage of the fixtures from right now. So having a look at the team now, the transfers I made was Luca Dean out, and that's fine because Sionchu, I was considering bringing into the side. He's been on my bench for a while now, since I played my wild card. They've got a Newcastle fixture this week, and then next week they've got Liverpool, so he'll drop to the bench. But then they have a lovely fixture run. So if I've got Alexander-Arnold and Otamendi as sort of my staple, they are my defenders. I've got Sionku, I've got Rico, who came in for Dean, and Lundstrom to choose from, who can rotate in that third slot. I don't think I need 3 players at that price. We'll talk about a little bit more about Luca Dean later in my players to pick, avoid, and take a risk on. But basically, it was to save funds, and that allowed me to upgrade Ceballos to Mount to get that Chelsea player in for that run, and a player in cracking form as well. And I swapped Barnes out for Firmino. Now, the moves that I had considered making, so if we stick with, for example, Luca Dean still going out, I could have gone something like Ryan Fraser instead of Mount, and then or I could have kept Barnes. It would have been Pookie, Barnes, and Tammy Abraham. But I do feel like Mount is, for me personally, the player to go for more than Tammy Abraham. That's my opinion. People can back Tammy Abraham, that's fine. But I think for the price and the position that I want, the formation I want to play, I like the 3-5-2. then I think this one was the way to go. I also could have rotations with the likes of Lundstrom, Rico, and Cantwell, but for now, I think Norwich has got some pretty good fixtures, and he has been posting good stats alongside Pukki. So I'm pretty happy with the squad now. I know it was a -8, but I kept tinkering around. I had even thought about a -4, and that could have been Aurier coming in for Luka Dean and Firmino coming in, or Tammy Abraham coming in for Greenwood to go for 3-4-3. But it felt like Aurier is a little bit too much of a punt for me now. And with Sionchu here in my team anyway, and someone who I'm probably going to look to play this week, not next week, but then for a huge run of games, it felt silly to bring in Aurier as a punt, where that's sort of 0.4 million that I could now put into the likes of Mount and Firmino, because now I've got nothing in the bank. So if I was going to make it, it had to be now, and it felt I just love Firmino. I think he's always been a quality player. He's arguably my favorite Premier League player, and this season he seems to be actually picking up the points. I think he's a great striker. When I looked at it, I thought all transfers. So Luka Dean going out isn't ideal, but with Sionchu, that'll cover my third defender out of the three. But Mount coming in for Ceballos is a pretty huge improvement. And Firmino coming in for Barnes. I think Barnes might do well this weekend. Again, I'm going to talk about him later on. But I do feel like, Firmino coming in for Barnes. So I'm going into game weeks thinking, wow, I'm actually really loving this attack force. And it's a little bit different. I didn't want to go down the same route of Tammy Abraham. Hallier is becoming a little bit less popular now. Maybe Callum Wilson is another way to go. But I also like this because if I need to or want to, Firmino can go to Callum Wilson. Firmino can go to Jamie Vardy, and I can move some funds around. So I'm just very happy with this squad at the minute. And I know I had a good game week, and maybe I was too excited after getting 76 points. But looking forward, this is still, in my opinion, a pretty decent squad. So now we'll have a look at the players that we predicted to avoid, pick, and take a risk on for game week 6, and then we'll have a look at next week's players as well. As you can see, it was a pretty decent week in terms of the predictions. So players to avoid, I had suggested Tammy Abraham. He hadn't really proved himself against any top sides so far this season. He did have a big chance in that Liverpool-Chelsea game, but wasn't able to take it. And he did end up getting substituted by Batshuayi later on in the game. I think it was about the 70th minute mark. So that was a correct prediction. Clean sheet for Manchester United, gone 2-0. They are looking in all sorts of problems right now. Watford getting an... I said this was why I put them in. I would hate to face a Pep Guardiola side away from home, going to the Etihad after getting humbled by Norwich City the previous week. Now that leaves them points behind Liverpool. I would have feared being that team, and Watford were in poor form as it was anyway, and it was an 8-0 drubbing. Going to players to pick, I said with that information, a City asset was going to be a great choice. Raheem didn't play a single minute in that game. People thinking, is he going to be dropped long term? I don't see it. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep him. If this week and next week he gets dropped or his minutes, vastly reduced, then of course I'd be taking him out of the side. But as of now, I'm not that fearful. Aubameyang saved Arsenal in that game against Aston Villa, scoring right at the end to get the winner. And again, Arsenal assets are a little bit strange. One's not really gone for, in a way, a little bit like Spurs. If you're going to go for an Arsenal player, I think it's got to be Aubameyang. Maybe have a punt on Pepe, but personally, I would only really be comfortable with Aubameyang in my side from Arsenal. And Callum Wilson had one attempt all game against Southampton, and it was a goal right at the death. So he has kept his no blank run going. And again, he's still one to look forward to in the future. I think they've got some really good fixtures. Differentials less than 10%, and he still is less than 10%. It's Heung-min Son getting that assist for that nicely taken Harry Kane goal. Richarlison didn't get anything. Everton didn't get anything against Sheffield United. They're looking really uncomfortable right now. We've all pinpointed the issue is their lack of an ability to get a goal from anywhere. But even defensively now, they're not looking as sure as we thought they were. And then Pepe, a differential that I'd suggested, was given the penalty very kindly by Aubameyang and slotted it very comfortably indeed. So it was a pretty decent return in terms of the predictions made last week. So I did say a City player, but I went for Sterling and Richarlison. You would have thought he would have got something at Sheffield United. But the rest, it was a pretty decent week. So now we look forward to the players to avoid, pick, and the differentials for game week 7. Now, first up, we're going to stick with Manchester United. I don't want to kick the boot in, similar to Watford, you can see below there as well. But Manchester United have conceded, I think now it's the most shots inside the box. Is there a crisis there? Do they really play for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? They've got some injury problems. Rashford came off injured. Martial's injured. Is Pogba up for it? There's been that issue of fight and desire and the sort of loyalty to the club. And if you'd have seen the analysis after the game with the likes of Jose Mourinho and Roy Keane, there does seem to be an issue there. We're not too sure. They have spent a lot of money. So even if we get to January, what are they going to do to sort this problem out? Maybe they'll get the odd clean sheet here and there, but in terms of attack right now, they are looking very vulnerable indeed. And honestly, my 2 cents here, I would, if I was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I would bring Roy Keane into the club. Not so high up as like an assistant manager, but as a first team coach, could you imagine the likes of after losing a game, Jesse Lingard, who actually came on up front for Manchester United, or Paul Pogba in training or after a defeat, laughing, joking around, going on Instagram, playing video games? Could you imagine doing that? Them doing that if Roy Keane was there? He would absolutely stick the boot in and tell him, you are not bigger than this football club. And I do think that there are a few players at Manchester United that need that that sort of telling off. And I think Roy Keane is definitely the sort of person to do that. Up next, you can see Watford Wolves in that bottom corner. They are playing against each other. For me, it's just a fixture to avoid. No assets at all I'm leaning towards in that Watford or Wolves side. You could argue that Jota scored or Delafeu's actually posted quite a few attempts, but both have had terrible starts this season. They're looking completely out of sorts, and who knows what this game's going to be. You really wouldn't want any of these players on your side. Arguably, maybe Wolves persuade you a little bit, but personally, this is just a fixture to avoid completely. It seems so volatile at Watford and Wolves right now that I just would not want to risk any of my players coming from those sides. And finally, I mentioned him earlier, Luca Dean out of my side, because as a defender, you do need to have that sort of reliance on clean sheets, not occasional bangs. We joke about Luca Dean, he'll score 11, 10, 0, -1, 15, 5, 0, -1, 25. He's so unpredictable. And there's only so many times that you can give a player that chance before you think, I need to get out now before price drops or before fixtures turn. And for me as well, you are relying on his attacking returns. He is a great attacking asset for Everton, but he has no one to assist it to. The biggest flaw that we've mentioned, and I've mentioned it so many times myself, that Everton just don't have that clinical striker. The one thing they desperately need is that prolific goal scorer with a history of goals, and they don't have it. Now, even on the fixture ticker, it looks like they still have a green run of fixtures. They do have Man City this week, so of course that's why I'd say avoid him for this game week. But after that, you have Burnley, West Ham, Brighton, and Spurs. Now, even if he could get attacking returns in those games, which seems not that likely, in terms of clean sheets, Burnley, you've got Chris Wood, who's just bagged a brace, plus the dangerous Ashley Barnes. You've got West Ham, who've got the likes of Lanzini, Anderson, Yarmolenko in good form, and Hallier. Brighton playing nice attacking football now. Morpay has been putting a lot of good underlying stats on the board. And then you've got Spurs. So none of them, for me, are easy to keep a clean sheet. And if you're not confident that your defender might get a clean sheet, then it kind of feels useless with him being in the side. Moving on to the place to take a pick now, and you can see Harry Kane. For me personally, I didn't want to say Heung-min Son again, because I'm saying Heung-min Son every single week, and it has worked out every week, but it's one of the two. So 3 attacking returns in a row now for Harry Kane. He's got a nice set of fixtures, so he's got Southampton, Brighton, and then Watford. Now, Kane and Son as well, the reason why I think this is a really good idea is those 2 players are a great differential captaincy pick. So you've got Sterling or Man City away to Everton, you have Liverpool away to Sheffield United, but then you have Spurs at home to Southampton. So if you're looking for that different pick, I do feel like Kane or Son would be a great differential captaincy this week. Also, I'm going to suggest Mason Mount. 2 goals and 10 goal attempts in the last 4 games. So he's been in really good form. He's getting 90 minutes under his belt. We thought he was going to miss the game against Liverpool with that horrible ankle injury that he looked to have picked up in the Champions League. But he got over it. He's still playing 90 minutes. He's still looking dangerous. And the next fixtures, the fixture run for Chelsea: Brighton, Southampton, Newcastle, Burnley, Watford and Palace. And for me personally, the reason why I brought him in my side over Tammy Abraham, I just feel like he's a better option. He's cheaper. Tammy's not proven against, well, I guess you could argue Mount isn't proven against, but he's cheaper against the established Premier League sides. But I just feel that Mount's, the amount of shots that he takes, and I wanted to go for Firmino and Pukki over Tammy Abraham. So that's why I personally am going to back Mount in this run. If you've backed Tammy Abraham or Mount and Mount, both of them together, then I think both of those players are a good option. I just personally am putting my mouth behind Mount this game week. And finally, I'm going to suggest to back Trent Alexander-Arnold. So he said he wanted to add more goals to his game, and bang, there he goes. He scores against Chelsea. And talking about Luka Dean earlier about you need defenders to keep clean sheets, I genuinely think Alexander-Arnold is the only defender where you genuinely can expect attacking returns as well as defensive ones. Even just in the last 2 game weeks, even though he didn't get any returns against Newcastle, in the last 2 game weeks against Newcastle and Chelsea, he has had more touches in the opponent's half than his own half. He's touched the ball 192 times, and 121 of those have been in the opponent's half, and 69 of those have been in the opponent's final third. He's also had 3 goal attempts, 19 crosses, and he's created 9 chances in those 2 game weeks. So when I said earlier that you need a defender that keeps clean sheets, I think TAA is the exception to the rule. And with the overlapping fullbacks and the style that Sheffield United have, what they did against Everton is they constantly try to push them out wide to cross the ball. And that kind of tactic is not going to work against Liverpool, because that is exactly what Trent Alexander-Arnold will want to do. He will want to be able to go out wide and want to be able to get that ball into the box. So they might change the tactics for Liverpool, but if they kind of keep that similar idea like they did against Everton, I think TAA will be a double-digit haul for this game week. And now moving on to the differentials, Jamie Vardy, less than 10%. He's got Newcastle at home. I did mention this with Sionchu earlier on. So minus game week 9 next. I think it's game week 9 or game week 8. He's got Liverpool. After that, they have a 10 game week fixture run where Vardy could almost be set and forget. You know, he's historically a great Premier League striker. I had him on the sort of easy run that Leicester had at the end of last season, and he did not disappoint. I think that if you want to bring a player in and he's just going to sit in your side, tick over, maybe every week or every other week he's getting a goal and or an assist, I do think that he's a really, really good asset. So he's got Newcastle this week, then he's got Liverpool, and then there's a really nice fixture run for Leicester. And I think a lot of people will be jumping on the Foxes during this time. Another differential I'm going to be suggesting is Barnes. I know it sounds crazy because I'm just taking him out of my own side, and a lot of people have been getting off the Barnes train, but Villa up next, and for me, he's been a little bit unlucky in the last few game weeks. He did have a few chances against Norwich. Chris Wood did score a brace in that game, I mentioned it earlier. And he also got denied a stone wall penalty. We know we're having, I'm not going to get into a VAR discussion, but it clearly was a penalty, and that would have gotten him an assist. So I still think he's a really great option, especially as a third choice striker. For those, and there's a lot of you guys now going for the classic 3-4-3, I think that third striker position, or even your second striker position, could easily be filled by Ashley Barnes. So a lot of you might be going for the likes of Pukki. I think Pukki's in almost everybody's side. You got Pukki, then you might have Tammy Abraham, and that third position, if you're sort of having 3 sort of cheap attackers, I think easily could be Ashley Barnes. And finally, a little bit another differential, a little bit of a weird one here. Azpilicueta, so Mr. Reliable. Many people at Chelsea are looking at Mount, Abraham, even 4.5 million Tomori at centre-back, but at a slightly lowered 5.9 million, the consistent captain could be really good value for those who want to leave Luka Dean. As I mentioned earlier, they've got a great run of games. Kante's now back in the side, who scored a lovely goal against Liverpool. Rudiger hopefully will be back into the side as well soon to solidify that defence, and that will make Az a really attractive option as the Chelsea right back. He's irreplaceable in that right back position. Now, Emerson versus Alonso looks really on now. Emerson is still not fully fit. Alonso's looks pretty good when he's come back into the side. But Azpilicueta is the undisputed king of the right back slot. So for those people now looking to get off Luca Dean, some of those people will be going straight to Otamendi. I think that's a really good option as well. But I just think there's a big differential. If you want to get on that Chelsea bandwagon that seems to be happening right now, low ownership, and he is he's easily one of the most consistent FPL players in recent years, and he's playing it right back for a Chelsea side that are looking quite attacking and have a really good run of fixtures. So that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you found this video interesting or helpful. Let me know in the comments below who your players are to avoid or pick, or what are your differentials for this game week. Any high hopes? What are your opinions on Sterling? Like I said, if he's dropped for the next few game weeks, chances are I might find myself taking him out, putting Aguero up front, and going 3-4-3. So thank you for your time, guys, and hopefully see you on Friday. The stream should be again around between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. That's GMT UK time. Hopefully I'll see you there, and if not, hope your hours are green, and as always, have a good one.